They obliterated it. Adam Pearce standing in the ring, jaw tight, voice shaking not with fear, but with authority, dropping a decision that sent shockwaves through the WWE Universe. Braun is banned. No suspension tease. No pending investigation. A straight-up ban. And here's the part that should make your blood boil. Was it justice or was it panic? Because when Adam Pearce bans someone like Braun, he's not just punishing a superstar. He's admitting something far more dangerous: he's lost control. Let me ask you this right now before we go any further: was Adam Pearce protecting WWE or protecting himself? Drop your answer in the comments, because this decision changes everything. Braun didn't just go too far. Braun did what WWE management has feared for months. He became unstoppable. Week after week, Braun's intensity wasn't reckless. It was deliberate. Every spear looked like it was meant to end careers. Every match felt less like competition and more like a warning. And instead of stepping up and controlling the chaos, Adam Pearce did what desperate authority figures always do. He slammed the door shut. A ban. Think about how insane that is. WWE has dealt with monsters before: Kane, Brock Lesnar, even Roman Reigns at his most ruthless. They didn't ban them. So why Braun? Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. Braun doesn't fit into their plan. And that's where this gets scary. Because the moment that ban was announced, the camera didn't cut to chaos backstage. It cut to Paul Heyman. And if you didn't feel a chill when Heyman started speaking, you weren't paying attention. No yelling, no over-the-top theatrics. Just that calm, venomous tone, the kind that tells you something far worse is coming. Heyman didn't argue the ban. He didn't threaten Adam Pearce. He smiled. Let that sink in. Paul Heyman smiling in the face of a ban is like a chess grandmaster sacrificing a queen. You don't understand it yet, but you're already losing. Heyman said just enough to make one thing clear: this isn't over. It's just been delayed. And here's a question you need to answer when Paul Heyman goes quiet: does that make the situation more dangerous? Because history tells us yes. Every single time. This wasn't a reaction. This was strategy. Heyman knows something Adam Pearce doesn't, or worse, something Pearce is trying to avoid. Let's talk about the timing. Why now? Why ban Braun right when his momentum is peaking? Because momentum is uncontrollable. Momentum doesn't listen to scripts. Momentum forces hands. And Adam Pearce just showed the entire locker room that when pressure rises, he chooses control over courage. That sends a message, and not a good one. To the fans, it says we decide who gets to be dangerous. To the locker room, it says step out of line and you're gone. And to Paul Heyman, it says you've won. Because banning Braun doesn't erase him. It mythologizes him. Absence creates obsession. Every week Braun is gone, the chants grow louder. Every week, the question gets sharper: what happens when he comes back? And trust me, he's coming back. Here's another question for you: should banned superstars be allowed to return stronger than before, or should bans be permanent? Because WWE has played this game before and it always ends the same way. Explosion. And don't ignore what Heyman didn't say. He didn't say Braun would appeal. He didn't say Braun would apologize. He didn't say Braun was wrong. That silence was louder than any promo. It told us Braun isn't done hurting people. He's just waiting for the right moment. Adam Pearce thinks he ended the problem. Paul Heyman knows he just created a bigger one. And here's the most unsettling part of all. What if the ban was never meant to stop Braun? What if it was meant to push him over the edge? Because WWE thrives on chaos, but only when they think they control it. Braun doesn't look controllable anymore. So I'll leave you with this final question, Ring Rumble fans, and I want everyone answering this in the comments. When Braun returns, who pays the price first: Adam Pearce, the locker room, or the entire WWE? Because one thing is certain: you don't ban a storm, you just wait for it to hit harder. And when it does, don't say you weren't warned. And that warning is already echoing through the building. Because listen closely to what's happening right now. The locker room isn't celebrating. There's no relief. No sigh of thank God he's gone. There's silence. The kind of silence that only exists when everyone knows the danger hasn't passed, it's just stepped outside the door. Superstars aren't asking if Braun comes back. They're asking when, and more importantly, who he's coming for. Because bans don't cool tempers. They don't drain violence. They ferment it. Every day Braun is away, the story grows. Every week management pretends he doesn't exist, his shadow gets bigger. And every time Adam Pearce walks into that arena, he knows one thing deep down that he'll never say on camera: he didn't end the threat. He postponed it. Now let's talk about something nobody wants to acknowledge. Adam Pearce didn't ban Braun because of what Braun did. He banned him because of what Braun represents. Unfiltered aggression, no alliances, no politics, no respect for how things are supposed to work. That's terrifying to a system built on predictability. Because you can script matches, you can manage egos, you can even control monsters if they want something from you. But Braun doesn't want approval. He doesn't want protection. He doesn't want a seat at the table. He wants to flip the table over. And Paul Heyman sees that clearer than anyone. That smile wasn't confidence. It was confirmation. Heyman didn't lose a client. He gained a weapon, because now Braun doesn't have rules. He doesn't have obligations. He doesn't even have a timeline. He has resentment. He has purpose. And worst of all, he has patience. That's when violence becomes intelligent. So ask yourself this: what happens when WWE needs Braun again? When ratings dip. When chaos is required. When someone backstage whispers, "We need something big." Because that's when the door reopens. Not with an apology, not with conditions, but with impact. And when that happens, Braun won't walk back in as a superstar. He'll walk back in as a reckoning. No music, no warning, just destruction. And whoever stands closest when that moment comes, that's the price of pretending this was over. So don't focus on the ban. Don't focus on the silence. Focus on the inevitability, because storms don't disappear. They regroup. And when Bron Breakker returns, this won't be about revenge. It'll be about reminding WWE who they tried to erase. Brace for impact, because inevitability doesn't ask for permission. It just arrives. And when it does, the first crack won't come from Braun's spear. It'll come from Adam Pearce's authority finally snapping. Think about it. Every decision Pearce makes from this point on is poisoned. Every ruling is questioned. Every punishment feels selective. Because once you ban one unstoppable force, you admit you're afraid of another. That fear spreads. The locker room sees it. Veterans whisper. Rookies hesitate. And the dangerous ones? They learn. They learn that chaos works. They learn that if you're violent enough, dominant enough, loud enough in your silence, management blinks first. And that's the real legacy of this ban. Not order. Precedent. Now picture the moment, the one WWE keeps trying not to imagine. The arena lights dip. Not for an entrance. Not for a return. For confusion. Security scrambling. Cameras cutting too late. Commentary going quiet because they don't know what they're allowed to say. And then impact. Not sanctioned. Not announced. Not controlled. Because Braun won't come back through the front door. He'll come back through consequences. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. What if Paul Heyman doesn't unleash Braun on Adam Pearce? What if that's too obvious? What if the first target is someone beloved? Someone safe? Someone the company thought would never be collateral damage? That's how messages get sent. That's how fear becomes policy. Because once Braun proves he can hurt anyone, anywhere, at any time, the ban becomes meaningless. Paper rules don't stop real storms. And that's when Pearce realizes the truth he's been running from. He didn't ban a man. He radicalized one. So when the inevitable happens, when Braun finally reappears, it won't be with rage in his eyes. It'll be calm, focused. Because the most dangerous version of Bron Breakker isn't the one tearing people apart in the ring. It's the one who learned how power actually works. And by the time WWE understands that, it'll already be too late. Too late to contain it, too late to rewrite it, too late to pretend this was ever about discipline. Because once power learns patience, it stops asking. It collects. And Braun is collecting. Every headline, every chant, every uneasy glance backstage when Adam Pearce's name comes up. Every time a superstar wonders if it can happen to him, could it happen to me? That's influence. That's gravity. And WWE didn't give it to Braun in the ring, they handed it to him with a ban. Now let's talk about the part no one is brave enough to say on air. Paul Heyman doesn't need Braun on television to win. He needs Braun off television long enough for the myth to grow teeth. Because absence turns dominance into legend. And legend doesn't need weekly matches. It needs anticipation. That's why Heyman hasn't demanded reinstatement. That's why there's no lawsuit angle. No public outrage. Silence is leverage. And every week that passes, that leverage increases. Meanwhile, Adam Pearce is trapped in a loop of his own making. If he lifts the ban too early, he looks weak. If he keeps it too long, he looks afraid. Either way, he loses authority the moment Braun steps back into the picture. And make no mistake, when that step happens, it won't be framed as forgiveness. It'll be framed as necessity. Because something bigger is coming. Something WWE can't control with contracts or committees. And when that threat emerges, there will be only one solution left. Unleash the thing you tried to lock away. That's when Braun returns, not as a reinstated superstar, but as a last resort. And what happens to last resorts when they're unleashed? They don't stop at the target. They keep going. They don't restore order. They burn the rulebook. So when Braun finally stands in that ring again, when the crowd erupts, not with cheers, but with recognition, the question won't be why he's back. It'll be what broke so badly that WWE had no choice. And the final irony? Adam Pearce will announce the return. He'll call it best for business. He'll dress it up as leadership. But everyone will know the truth. This wasn't a reinstatement. It was a surrender. Because you can ban a man. You can delay a storm. You can even convince yourself you're in control. But the moment you need the storm to save you, it was never your storm to begin with.